Good evening, dear participants. Dear Vijay, how are you?
Yes, I am good. How are you?
I am good too. Thank you very much for joining today in
Yeah,
our webinar
yes,
dedicated to the World's Intellectual Property Day. We decided to conduct this webinar in this spirit. It was on 26 April. We a little bit late, but we wanted to mention this day in our webinar today. And also, I would
yes.
like to introduce our Mars on Earth project. If anyone doesn't know that Vijay Kanade is the coordinator for India for the Mars on Earth project. It's a Turkey-based project. And we just came together with the scientists and students to explore the opportunities in space sector. So, dear Vijay, if you're ready, please introduce yourself. And I'm so excited about your presentation.
Thank you so much for the introduction. And I'll begin with, sharing of my PPT here.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, yeah. I hope this is visible.
Yes, we see your screen right now.
Yeah, so I'll begin. Just give me a sec. Okay. So today's topic is basically IP in space ecosystems. So my name is Vijay, and I'm running an R&D lab in India here, which is named as Alpha Singularity. I'm an author, researcher, and IB professional. I have been in IB since past 15 years, and I have written a lot many research papers, along with that, a few books as well. All right, let's begin. So the agenda of today's discussion is I will go through one by one. First is the space economy, which is nothing but what the market current trend is when it comes to space ecosystems. Second is how we measure the legal gap. What is the legal gap in IP, intellectual property, which is part of inventory or part of the scientific community. And along with that, there is orbital jurisdiction. We'll look at how the IP law differs in different jurisdictions. Then we have the philosophical shift in how IP in space ecosystems is been taken up by everyone around. Then there is patent landscape when it comes to space systems. What is the landscape that is currently in picture, and how countries are navigating this scenario? Then we look at the growth trend and how the patenting world has been shaping differently when it comes to space machinery. And then we'll look at future frontiers. Let's look at space economy first. If you look So global space economy currently stands about 500 billion plus. So it was in 2023, it was about 630 billion, which has significantly reduced in recent years. But again, it is projected that by 2035, it will be about $1.8 trillion. Now, why this is happening is purely because of the commercial companies and private players that are coming into picture. And if you look at individual countries, there are multiple countries who have launched their individual satellites out in the outer space, be it lower Earth orbit or middle Earth orbit. So what this is pointing uh, to is that the space is no longer government-led, which was the scenario a few years ago, but it is a global commercial industry today. Since we are talking about patents and the business aspect of this of these entities come into picture. Now, what is the legal gap here? So if you look at the IP law individually, it is completely territorial. When I say territorial, it means each country has this own IP laws that apply to different inventions that are being run within their own country, right? Like for example, some countries might allow chemical composition as a part of their patenting system, but some countries may not allow chemical compositions as part of patent area. So that is how different jurisdictions have their different IP laws. But Space, when we talk about space, that is not the case. So what happens in that scenario? So there is no land here, there are no borders here, but still patents exist that have been defined upon the space ecosystem. So here what we are doing is we are applying a completely Earth-based legal system to a borderless environment, which is nothing but the space. Now, what is orbital jurisdiction here? So in short, law follows the spacecraft. Now let's look at this in detail. So let's say XYZ country, let's say India, for example, has a specific patent in the space ecosystem. So that country defines the jurisdiction. That country defines the jurisdiction of that specific patent or entity or invention, and those laws are applied to any kind of a space object that has been let out into space. For example, now if you look at the ISS modules, uh, ISS is composed of space components from different countries. So what happens is each country has its own laws. So all those laws are applied to those modules that have been established on the ISS. So orbit are basically lawless here. But each one of the satellites that are there in the outer space carries its own legal system with it. So if you look at the current May, as per the statistics of May 2026, there are nearly 15,000 plus active satellites in orbit. So each satellite carries its own legal system based on the jurisdiction from which it is coming, right? Now, what is the philosophical shift in this space arena? Now, if you look back a few hundred years ago, the thinking was that space is something which is said by each and everyone. So there was Outer Space Treaty, there was collaboration, there was Apollo space program. So in short, science was much more important and significant than the ownership that is there in picture today. But today, what is happening is, as per the modern space economy, space is driven by companies like SpaceX, Blue Origin, NASA, ISRO, or different space agencies that are coming into picture because of which this IP aspect or the commercial aspect is bringing in the space area. So what happens is we need legal protection, IP patents to secure the returns that we are actually investing into. So innovation is no longer just shared, but it is owned, protected, and monetized, right? So a few years ago, science was much more important than ownership, but today ownership is as equivalent to scientific development. So this is the shift that has happened, right? Now, what does the patent landscape with the space environment? So the most important space patents fall under five buckets. First is the connectivity patents, which is nothing but satellites which provide connectivity to different user stations, different base stations, or internet connections, for example, where Starlink of SpaceX comes into picture. Second is with respect to safety. Now, when I say safety, when we launch specific spacecraft or any space object, the launching company or the institution has to take care of the safety factors. Now, for example, let's say you launch a satellite or let's say you launch a spacecraft, after a few years or after a certain period of time, it loses its operational capability, because of which it eventually becomes a part of space debris. So now this space debris can be harmful to the new space programs that have been taken up by different countries or different agencies here. So the safety is one of the aspect where the patent come into picture, which safeguard this safety factor with respect to the space environment. Then there is access patents, where the launching systems, how they are unique, how they are novel, they are defined in this category. Then there is something called as maintenance, where let's say spacecrafts are operational or satellites are operational within space, they're continuously running. But while in orbit, what is the requirement or what kind of invention is required to keep them maintained and functional and operational throughout their life cycle? So that falls in the maintenance category, maintenance patents. Then there is network patents, where the multi-orbit systems come into picture. So there are low Earth orbit, middle Earth, and higher Earth orbits, where different satellites with different capabilities are launched, which have specific tasks for themselves. but this different network of space objects fall under this patent category, networks category, right? So let's look at a few patents here so that we understand it much more clearly. Now, satellite internet constellations, one of the companies which is leading in this arena is SpaceX. So as per the 2019 patent, SpaceX has patented phased array antennas that allow satellites to communicate with multiple ground stations simultaneously. Now, why this matters is that patents protect the design of the flat, high throughput antennas, focusing on beamforming, signal routing, and manufacturing. Right. So this particular patent focuses on satellite internet constellations, and it also allows the antennas to communicate with multiple ground stations. So this is one category. Now let's look at safety. Second patent, which is with respect to space debris tracking. This is Raytheon Technologies. So one of the patent here is basically fiber-based, where interceptors are deployed from space vehicle to deorbit the debris. So whatever the debris or the waste that is there in the space, to deactivate that space debris, they have certain programs which are fiber-based, and that patent has been defined by Raytheon Technology. So they typically take care of the safety patents here. Now, why this matters is because it helps in space situational awareness, debris tracking, and mitigation. Let's look at third one, which is reusable rocket technology. Now, one of the companies of Jeff Bezos's Blue Origin. One of the patent covers that this aspect where the reusable upper stage utilization of aerospace engine and main propulsion and landing is being taken care of. Now, why this matters is because it protects sea landing methods, aerospike engines for upper stages, and specialized thermal protection for re-entry. So with respect to reusable aspect, Blue Origin has certain set of patents under itself, under its own belt. Fourth one is in orbit satellite serving, which is nothing but the fourth category of patent, which is maintenance category. So one of the patent by Northrop Grumman, it defines that spacecraft servicing devices and related assemblies. So with respect to maintenance, they have designed certain servicing devices which help in maintaining spacecraft within their networks for a certain duration of time. This matters because it creates a new in-space services market and increases asset lifespan. The fifth category is with respect to the networks category, where multi-orbit satellite networks are defined. Now, OneWeb is one of the companies which has patents in this area, and it has collaboration with Chimeta Corporation, and one of the patent defines that integration of different orbital layers LEO MUGO into one network, right? And why this matters? Because it enhances speed, coverage, redundancy, foundation of future hybrid networks. So we have looked at different category of patents that are currently operational, and which companies are taking care of each of these categories is what I have listed down here. So we have actually uh, covered the patent landscape that is existent right now. Now let's look at the growth trend. So as I previously said, the shift has gone from government to private filings, since there are commercial players and private companies that are coming up. As per the statistics, there has been significant growth since 2015. A lot many companies are coming, a lot many startups are coming up, which are establishing into space area. It has also increased multi-orbit and AI-based ecosystems. With the AI boom, a lot of new technological inventions are happening. So technology is becoming more autonomous, scalable, and commercial. So if you look at the graph here, as per 2025, as I previously said, the space economy stands at close to 500 billion. 2026, it is expected to be 531 by the end of 2026. And by 2030, we expect it to be about $670 billion. So this is how the space market or tech market is moving, space tech market. Even in case of European nations, recently, in November 2025, European nations agreed to increase spending on space over the next 3 years by about 30%, which is equivalent to 22.1 billion euros. This is part of an effort to try to catch up to the US, the topmost performing countries, which is US, China, and private firms that are trying to move ahead in the space race, which includes Space Blue Origin and different other companies. Right? So European nations are as well contributing and making an effort to stand out amongst the or play a significant role in this uh, space area. What are the future frontiers? When you look at all of this history, what are the future frontiers? Now, since we have reached the moon in 1969 and even recently in Artemis, our next target basically, not our, I mean, different companies are targeting aspects like lunar mining, where different lunar soil or lunar craters are being studied. There is space biotech, right? There are orbital factories that are being set up. There are even space data center factories that are being set up, which will enable different AI systems to run on Earth. Again, different IP laws might be applicable there as well. Then there are AI-driven satellites that are emerging as the next wave of space innovations. So these technologies shift value creation beyond Earth into orbit and onto celestial bodies. So the next generation of patents will be created in space for space. And by the time we reach there, we might have a clear idea on how to deal with legal aspects when it comes to space patents. So what is the real question here? The real question here is, let's say we make certain inventions on planet Mars. Which country owns the invention there? Or who owns the invention basically? Is it the country, the company that is creating the invention, or the entire humanity for that matter? So from all this study, what I have come to a conclusion is that law hasn't caught up to the innovation yet. We have the sufficient kind of innovation and different technologies to take care of innovations that are happening in this space R&D, but law is yet to take its stand and live up to the innovation level that is happening right now. These are some of the references that I referred to, and yeah, thank you. If you have any questions, I'm open to them.
Thank you very much, dear Vijay. Your presentation was really inspiring and so much information in a such short time. Thank you for your
Yeah.
effort.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, we might continue to discuss this topic in our as well as in WhatsApp chat group. Due to limited time, I would like to start my presentation. And
Sure.
okay, I'm going to share my screen. So my name is Maral. I'm an attorney at law, but once I was a student and during my studies at Başkent University, I completed a year-long course in intellectual property that shaped my academic interest. I further expand my knowledge by attending the copyright law in the music business course at Berkeley College on 2024, where I gained a solid understanding of copyright fundamentals in their practical application. So today I want to talk about intellectual property law in outer space activities. By the way, I am the coordinator for Mars on Earth project for Russia and Turkmenistan. You may gain more information about this project by just typing it into Google. So today's agenda, as you see, we will start with a short definition. So what is the intellectual property? Intellectual property rights refer to legal protection granted to creators and businesses for their inventions, artistic works, brands, and design. There are several types of intellectual property rights: patents, design rights, trademarks, geographical identification, copyrights, trade secrets, for example. So when we look at the space context and implementation of IP rights, we have serious questions in this part. So implementation of intellectual property rights are primarily territorial, as dear Vijay mentioned right before me, and meaning they are granted and enforced under national and regional legal systems. And but there's some way to make these rights more acceptable in the worldwide. For example, registering your right in the Madrid system, Hague system, or Patent Cooperation Treaty for patents. You just registered once, and you may protect your intellectual property worldwide with the countries who are joined these treaties. Is a short information. So when we look at intellectual property in outer space context, so what we might say, they are primarily influenced by the principle that space objects are subject to the jurisdiction and control of the state in which they are registered, as established in Outer Space Treaty. So what does it mean? While there is no single comprehensive space IP treaty, national IP laws may extend to space objects registered by that state, treating them as a former quasi-territory for IP purposes. However, the application of IP law in space remains complex and context-dependent, particularly in multinational missions. In the absence of explicit international rules under several international agreements concluded with respect to international space projects, registered space objects are treated as quasi-territory for the purposes of intellectual property. So the example is to ships on the high seas under law of the flag. You may look at this law as well to better understand the logic, and aircraft under the jurisdiction of the state of registration. So by analogy, space objects can be treated similarly to vessels or aircraft, meaning that the IP laws of the registering state are likely to apply to activities conducted on board. However, this remains an evolving legal area with potential overlaps. Thank you very much. So what is the Kármán line? It is the international recognized demarcation line between Earth and outer space, remains the Kármán line, set 100 kilometers above Earth, and could serve as boundary for applying national laws, including patent laws, to the space object. So what is the conflict between space law and IP rights? Under Article 1 and 2 of the Outer Space Treaty, outer space must be used for the benefit of all humankind and cannot be subject to national appropriation. However, the protection of intellectual property rights may create tension with these principles by restricting access to knowledge derived from space activities, potentially limiting the freedom of exploration and use of outer space. And unresolved issues, temporary presence, doctrine in space. Article 5 ter of the Paris Convention for the Protection of Industrial Property limits patent rights in the public interest to ensure freedom of transport. Okay, legal question here is, does this exception apply to space objects, such as when patented goods are transported to or from a space station via foreign launch state? This is the main question here. And here I just share a detailed information about that article. I will share my presentation and you may read it in detail. And here I shared the core idea. So we came to conclusion, space activities expand through both states and private companies. Intellectual property are becoming increasingly important in outer space. Clearer IP rules support innovation, enable public-private cooperation, and encourage investment in space technologies, in line with the principles of the Outer Space Treaty. A balanced IP framework will help ensure international cooperation, reduces legal uncertainty, and support the sustainable development of space activities. So here's I shared my source as you saw, we got here a few legal questions about the IP in outer space. Thank you very much. It was an awareness webinar. I hope you liked it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yes.